one weekend. Oh, nice. I was just talked to in German. Amazing. The program. Geshe said we can still wait 5 minutes before we start the actual teaching. So if people have questions, we could start with questions.
Well, this isn't a question, but I'm just going to say this now by way of apology, because unfortunately I can't stay till the very end today. So I will disappear in due course and Perry will stay with you as host. So my apologies in advance.
Morang la jibu yo maris nyachik labeji tu ka insin morang thering kare di kare lobchen sama ring tu kare detu gi maris. Morang kap chila kare padu gwa gongda yinyang keng dindu gwa yinyang carry di nyoso kare.
What verses are we doing today, Geshe?
Yeah, so Geshe said we are on this verse. How do we do this?
40, 41.
It says Migma Kangrung Chidola Giva Shapaja. It says something like, let me just have a look here. It says something about a virtuous object.
English.
It's 40. It's the verse 40. And it says here in the end of 40, it says place the mind on any one virtuous focal object. Yeah, so the Tibetan doesn't have this nice count of verses of 4 lines, but it cuts it down into smaller pieces at times. Sometimes it does a bigger chunk, but here it's just these 2 lines. Place the mind on any one virtuous focal object.
Very good.
Yeah?
Thanks.
Take it do.
Geshe, why don't I start with the refuge and bodhicitta prayers?
Yeah.
Sangye chedang saki chonam lai janchu badu dadni kapsuchi dagi chenengi personam gi drola penchi sangye druparasho Sangye chedang saki chonam lai janchu badu dadni kapsuchi Dagi chenengi personam gi jala penji sangye japasho Sangye chedang saki chonam la janchu badu dani kapsuchi Dagi chenengi personam gi jala penji sangye japasho Gangi tusen nejung ne tawa tanche pangpe chi Dampe cheni tenzem par gotam de la chase.
Aya tang anzo ge lapsen mushi de oda shinen ka de le de yares. Ine ta tanda tsik de majal lapsha ba yana. Shinen kumtsu se je da shinen kombe penyen se je odi ge shegi yares. Ta shinen kumtsu de kanda le se she shinen kumtsu de la chidang cha ba yana. Neba nga pong duchi ge tembe tone shine kumze chik tang. Da semne de tab gula ten. Ne shine kumze. Da neba nga pong duchi ge tembe tingzu de tang. Semne gula tingzu de chidang jem nika nyamdo yonggu yadas. Da yine yang ma ngoto jide nga te minda yadas.
Ship dila tana.
Shipshil dana. Tunda muishi kare sana shine kombe kausu nyeba nga de pongu yarin dushi kela tengu ra sena gula tengu yaris. Di kala tab dru sejil tengu yara yiji shi sejil tengu yaris. Ta koran nengare de diris ta shine drutsugi nengare de wodi na yara sama. Just on.
Tenzu sum kadis kagare. Ni bangala kare duchigi bichidongi semnegu top du tong yichishi.
Mara semne gula tene shine dupju telayang nyeba nga pon duji geten gu yaras. Nyeba nga pon duji ge tene shine dupju she inde galayang semne gula ten gu yaras. Tenige kapsu tab jula ten gu ro tenige kapsu yichi shila ten gu yaras. Ta shungi shada minda wa tende yaras.
Yeah, so just where we are in text is this presentation of karma binding. And so we have actually two sections. One is the way how to cultivate karma binding, how to measure karma binding, and the other one, the benefits of developing karma binding. And so when we talk about the way how to cultivate karma binding, how that is presented, then we have here different ways to present this. So, for example, one way of presenting is that we need to get rid of 5 faults in order to gain karma binding, and we do that by 8, well, I could say applications or 8 antidotes. Yeah, so there's this connection here: 5 faults abandoned by 8 antidotes, or 8 by 8 applications. Then there's another way to describe how to cultivate karma binding. And so this is the 9 mental abidings, 9 states that lead to which you have to go and develop in order to come to the result of karma binding. And so Geshe was first talking about just these 2. Yeah. So while there is a presentation of you attain karma binding by relying on the 8 antidotes to the 5 faults. Yeah, so when somebody follows that in order to get karma binding, he nevertheless has to go through these 9 mental abidings. Yeah, in the process of applying the 8 antidotes to the 5 faults, he will go through the 9 abidings. And then another presentation, they talk about how you gain karma binding by going through these 9 levels to the 9 mental abidings. But while you're relying on this, while you're trying to develop from one level to the other, in that process, you will have to apply the 8 antidotes to the 5 faults. And there's actually a third presentation which is talking about So they talked about 6 forces or 6 powers and 4 attentions. Yeah, so this is another way to present this development of karma binding. And so it seems like that different texts are sometimes just talking about, let's say, the 5 faults have to be cured or abandoned by the 8 antidotes. And other texts only present the 9 mental abidings, and yet other texts talk about the 4 strengths and the 4 attentions. But in the end, whichever of these presentations you follow, then within that, when you apply that, what this text is saying, then within that, the other 2 will also have to be practiced.
Nenjuru shine drup juna kesi shine taba ina suwata ngoshe da jang doro gyo dishe tera dena ngoshe la soma dena dugure wadi geshe gyo wa.
So so here with regard to this this section, so this is a headline here in our commentary, the way to how to cultivate karma binding. So this, what comes under this headline in our text, is these 2 lines: place the mind on any one virtuous focal object. Yeah, so that's it. That's all what the root text actually has on how to develop karma binding. And then after that comes a section which is called the benefits of developing karma binding. The benefits of cultivating in this way, and this is again 2 lines, just the 2 lines of the next verse, which is: when the practitioner has gained karma binding, higher perception will also be gained, like clairvoyance is higher perception, like that. So,
당하시고 달사 신에게错了 내봐 대세 담면은 신에게错了 땡고가 집에 지경이지 신에게错 땡받들 죽색이 봐错 먼저 가서 먹지 나서 신에게 错了 땡인데 틈에 있는 내고 야래 여봐 충활을 땡고 야래 초시발 땡고를 야래 니 자만고 용서 빵발라 땡고 야래 니 주는 남받다 가지고 야래 니 너가 러버링 가지고 야래 세요
here it says in the commentary after these two lines where we said to place our mind on a virtuous object as the method how to meditate on calm abiding. The commentary says here with regard to somebody who is abiding in the I think this is called the preparations of calm abiding as previously explained. So there is this topic of the preparations of the conditions for calm abiding. So there's 6 of those, and Geshe says this, as it says here, as previously explained, that's in the commentary. So, so it says actually you people must have gone through this topic before in the past. Geshe has explained this to you. So he just mentions the 6 again. So what was that? The 6, the first one is that you have to go to a conducive place. The second one is that you should have few desires. The third one is that you are having a mind that is easily satisfied, satisfied with whatever circumstances you have. The fourth one is the fourth one. Chokshegi Jida. Then abandoning an overflow of activity, too many activities, then abiding in a pure ethical discipline, and finally knowing how to get rid of thoughts of desire.
What is
the 6 prerequisites for calm abiding?
다도 가상하면 배전 되게 대신 사상 잡차를 쟁기도. 와 대신 잡아야 쟁기도. 와 제대로 계시더라. 제 잡선했어. 그러면은 반드시 가면 쟁기도.
This is Drupdula.
Yeah.
So Geshe feels like that he has already explained that, yeah. So he seems to remember that you went already into that. So he just wants to check back with Carrie. Did that happen? Can you remember that these 6 were explained? Because if not, then he would explain them now. Well, it's very difficult to hear you because you don't have your microphone on. Makes it difficult.
I wasn't at the last session, so I can't comment. I'm sorry. Maybe somebody else would remember.
Yeah, 안다 되기도. 당하서 들만 대셔시 잡난 되기래. 좋아?
Yeah. So anyway, Geshe says it's maybe good to just go over this again.
다 당고 네 신에게 초세대 때야 내가 신의 주발라 문조들 신의 주발라 가르치고 그랬어. 신의 주발라 가르치고 그랬을 레인데다 신에게 초된 거랬어. 당 신에게 초된 마드는 신의 주에 나가대 요 말이었어. 저는 인지민지 신의 주발라 알레 무시 신의 주발라 문조들 예바 치고 그랬어. 어디 초된 봐. 어디 계시게 그랬어.
So what are these 6 actually? These 6 are like preparatory practices, you know. Geshe used this word ngonjo, that we also know from other contexts, that you have certain ngonjos to do, certain preparatory practices for in order to prepare your mind, or you continue for a certain actual practice. So the same thing is true here. So these kind of preparations or preparatory practices. So this is what these 6, actually they're called the 6 accumulations somehow. Yeah? The word is talk, like an accumulation or an assembly. The 6 points or the 6 preparations. So this is what you need to bring about as a preparation or as a preparatory practice, if you like, for what is your actual point, which is practicing calm abiding. Yeah. So in order to do the actual practice of calm abiding, we need to do these preparations, and so Geshe used the word preparatory practices even for that, which are these 6 here. Yeah? So the point is, if you have not made effort with these 6 as a preparation, then the actual practice will not turn out. Yeah, so you will not attain calm abiding if you have not worked on these 6 first.
대체 다 담보 알레 튜베 유나네 바슬라바이나 튜베 유스 더 컨디션스 다 튜베 유스들라 셰인도 튜베 유들 가르샤고 야레 슬라데 튜베 유들 드네 아 드네 젠센라 소마 다게 드네 베 가수고레 녀소 튜베 유스나 튜베 유들 컨디션 나타나 코 사자데 제시기야 신의 두가 두세기 사자들 제시기야 사자데 컨디션 고아레스 제시기야
So the first of the 6 was this kind of according, how to say, conducive area, or the conducive place. Yeah, so conducive, like being in accordance, or conducive for your practice. So this is actually talking about a physical place. Yeah, so certain qualities of a physical place. Yeah, so the first one is about a physical place. The others maybe not. But the first one is just about the actual place, that area, and how this should have certain qualities.
야 칼라지 타르고 요데 소르네 마인게시 와다 드네진데 세고로 소바 드나냐 라와스 치그데 드네 친선로 소바 사게 드네게 드네 셴다게 도바지게 신앙함다 메버시 지원 메버시 고야 스타든다
So so the first quality of these conducive area or place is such that when you go into retreat, you will still have to have food and drink, and you need to wear something and so forth. So you have certain needs. You need to have access to certain necessities. Yeah. So these need to be procured. When you for a long time in retreat, you will have to have a constant flow of these goods, or you have to have access, in other words. Yeah. So this area is conducive to your practice when it is an area where it is easy to procure these kind of necessities, because you will have to procure them. The point is that you need food and drink, for example. So if when you run out from food and drink, you have to go on quite a journey in order to get these things anew, then that will be not conducive. Yeah? So you don't want to kind of get a long time on the journey to get these things and so on. So that's the first point. It's an area where it is easy to find these kind of necessities, or to procure these things. That's the first one. The next one is that this area should be free of predators, or beasts of prey, or something like this. Yeah. So also thugs and so forth. So or like thieves or robbers or whatever. So Geshe says this has to do that it is a fear-free area, yeah, something where you're not constantly afraid or something. And that would be not conducive for your practice. So that's the second point.
야도 조고지 사지 연어 도와지게 나초조들 로아까지는 도와지는 자자 덴데게 내 미키 사상መስ을 다도다 가인스나 사자 장마당지 임베네 당지 사야고지요 봐야나 되게도 거두거두 수수 내 나자로 소바 덴데 뉴아데 뉴뉴샤가 대전은 사장마 토사 덴데 지금 다 가인스나 즉 And
so the next one is Sangbu. It's kind of a nice ground, you could say, like a beautiful, not beautiful, could be beautiful, but the meaning is that it is a place that is not breeding sickness. Yeah, it is not a dirty place. It is not something that is kind of contaminated, or something that is maybe, I don't know, a swamp or something that is breeding sickness, or that is not conducive to your sickness. Could also be a place where there's a lot of dust, for example, yeah? if this gives you health problems and so forth. So this is what this is referred to as kind of a conducive earth or a conducive ground, yeah, the actual place, the physical, the atoms kind of thing, the actual earth needs to be conducive. And so it refers to that it's not a place that is unclean or is breeding sickness or makes obstacles like this. So Geshe said, like, it is a place where you go to this place, and this immediately dawns on your mind. There comes this, the thought comes out in your mind, oh, this is a clean place, this is a conducive place.
That didn't Kasa Rain get children Dabach Quarters. Children Yataba Sungash. Michu children and Jamphel Labja and Lake Rain and Tatonda, what the date Chigi Red Chumaji and Chumajuaji by and that Michu children to the Awasungash Quarters. Children number Dabach, what children Dabach in the niche quarters.
So now you're just speaking about this topic of that you should have abiding a pure ethics. Yeah. So this can be all kind of different ethics. Could be something of the type of the individual liberation vows, or it could be the trainings of refuge, yeah, the different refuge trainings that you have, or just abiding in your understanding of karma, like of actions, cause and effect. Yeah, so abiding by that is also in itself already an ethical practice, or giving up the 10 non-virtuous actions. Or again, this individual liberation vows. So it could be like a lay vow. So it could be if somebody's ordained. It could be somebody some ordination vows, like Getsu or Genom or something like this. So so whatever you took here as your ethical discipline, to then also make sure that you abide by that.
That's right. That didn't draw Raja Chashaba in a Tawa so good robot in the Yoba in a ticket sama Devatumba, Tawatumba. That don't that kinds in a draw some bush Guyata. Timana Yadibara Chigit Kangada Yorala de Paja de Legio, Sujo, what she your Kangada, didn't yan the Komjar Juya Morba. What the legend? You get the Rajan Mini and Nishi and Michuyan and that come down to what the neck bara, didn't they? Tawatumba, the Watumba session, one, the Watumba.
Did you be way?
That did it, Maraman, the kinds not that. What to be with Tandara, to be with Tandara. To be you and up, take a zera, Nabadra, Chide, Nabadra.
Can I say another children let them, but you choose one?
What the children like them, but the kinds not it did about.
It's so two children, right?
So Bruna, that kind to be Unachire. To be you de la Tabana Castle, that children than Dambasala did not deliver. Kansa Koran, Tabenaji, Kanjumanji, Chasama, in such a quarter. How goes on?
You dropped Dumba.
What does that someone too much?
So another aspect, going back to this this conducive, the aspects of this conducive area. Yeah, so we saw already that it should be something where you can easily procure your necessities, and it should not breed a sickness. It should be free of fear and so forth. So another one is that you should have their.
Did it the pageant did what I cannot children and Dambatan Tawatumba said the Kansa. Yang Gom Jan Robert Sama. Yang Mikate Yoba in a canal robot cathedral when she Yoba in a something robot cathedral to some children and Dambatan in the Tawatum Squares.
So another point of this, another aspect of something being a conducive area is that whatever other people dwell there that are also kind of staying in retreat or something like it's called companions. Yeah? Whatever companions you have there, that these companions are also kind of conducive or are harmonious with you, and also harmonious with regard to your behavior, for example, with regard to your ethical discipline, that they're keeping a similar ethics like you, and also that they have a similar view like you. Yeah, like also on ethics, for example, yeah, or on the practice and so on. So that's an aspect of this area that the companions that you have in this area, they are in accordance with what you're doing. Yeah, so they do a similar practice, have a similar idea and so forth.
네 추름 다 따왔던 것을 추름데 이게 조금 추름을 작으면 돼. 호랑도 낭편주 튀남. 로봇도 더 가야워도 참아 튀남 야고 봐야지. 이게 지금 여러 라인에 맞지. 어디 또
So maybe here the text led to a little bit of confusion because it was mentioning ethical discipline here. Yeah? So Geshe gave this explanation of what it means to abide in ethical discipline. But this is actually one of the 6 preparations. Yeah? And so actually it mentioned this ethical discipline also here in the 5 aspects of what is like the first of the 6 preparatory practices or preparations is the conducive land, yeah, the conducive area, and this one has 5 points. So there also this word ethical discipline showed up. So that's why Geshe explained that you have to abide in ethical discipline. But this is actually another, it does not belong to the first point because it's another of the 6 points. But what it was mentioning here is that you should have these companions in accordance with you, and there comes the ethical discipline. So they should have a similar level of ethics. That so they should kind of be conducive to your own ethics as well. So that's what ethics has to do here in this context of a conducive area.
어디지? 다들네 다베라셔서나 님이 권라 그나지기 도바 미망고 용에서 주리스 용에서 사자스로 되나마인바 그러니까 저번에 용사스로 사자되는 마인바 야나 둔두 생자 도와야 도바다 제쟁스로 들에 망고 예서 사자 마인바 세모인의 지금 잠들이 되는 예 도바 다시 못된다 자모드스 사자스로 들다 들에 되냐 마인바 다 들에 세모인의 바 잠들이 되는 님의 도바제 가지고 도바 용사 마인게 또 들으시 거래서 액션을 줬어.
So the 5th point of a conducive area is such that it should be an area where neither in the day there's a lot of hustle and bustle and a lot of people working there or coming through or making noise or activity. So, for example, in a tourist place, yeah, where there's a lot of tourists showing up, yeah, so you wouldn't go there. And also in the night, you want a place where there is not. So actually, with the day, he also mentioned you don't want to go to a place where a lot of animals come together, for example, yeah. So that there's a lot of noise from the animals also, yeah. So it doesn't have to be tourists and humans, but it can be also a place where a lot of animals come together and there's a lot of noise from the animals and so forth. So also that you try to avoid. And then with regard to the night also should be kind of the night in this area should be kind of calm, silent, so that there is no kind of music played or kind of entertainment areas or something like this. So again, noise of people playing, frolicking or whatever. Yeah, so none of that. So you want it to be pretty much kind of calm during the day and in the night.
다디는 대화 충만서래. 근데 연안에 봐셔 자자 단 대화 충만서라 저가냐 당한저 튕겨되게 고구려데 얘네양 튕겨되게 배심시 상고 쉬어져 요아에 라자네스 대화 충만처럼 스나들이다. 아마 약속한 통과인데 제가 런던에 라하고 봐.
네.
제가 어디에 살다야 말했을 때다. 대화 충만서나 봐.
Die zogen nie über.
뭐들
So that was the first preparation. The second preparation is that you should be in a state where you have few wishes, yeah, or few desires, few wishes. So what that means is that, as has been said before, we need to get certain necessities fulfilled. Yeah, we need to procure certain necessities. But within that, we should not have this kind of longing for extreme high quality or the best of the best or something like this. Yeah. So while we need certain things, with regard to these things, we should not have this attitude. They have to be of very high quality and very special and so forth, because those you will have great difficulties to procure. Yeah, you will not get those. So that's what's in this advice to be it's included in this advice to be of few desires,
네.
of low expectation, you could say, for example.
다들 초시해 봤을 때 초시해 봤을 때 나도라 알레지게 세븐 네말로 써봐 대다 튕긴 고글에 슬랍서봐 고여바디 상황들라 초시해 봤어 그래서 대라 더바치고 쉬고 맞아 대라 초시해 봤어 그래서 수마들라.
And so the third one is called being satisfied. And so what this is referring to again, given that we have needs also in these in the situation of meditation and of retreat in an isolated place, but what we need is we need to bring together these necessities, and once we have those, then we are satisfied with that, whatever we have. Yeah, so we don't get obsessed with these necessities, but we have that, we have procured what we need, and now we are satisfied with that. So that's another state of mind that we need for the preparation of karma.
다시 받으래. 되네. 자오망고 연습 방법 하슬라고 해. 자오망고 쓰나다 되나 저게 묘종의 자와 파조지 야양도 마망도 지 대단하지 제가 로고도 쓰나 양변에 지 랭아도 답에 야망망고 좀 줘대죠. 뭐 되게 자오망고. 나 되는데 가서 왔더니 지 잘라리 녀가라기는 지 타르무 좋아해 서로 된다다. 냐 다저 지 도와지 망다서나 냐 파종 대 서로 된다다. 뭐 되게 묘종 자와들다. 전다 야마 쇼전 존에 파바게 시가도 투수게저 미카시 야바 무시준 맞아 저디지하고나 두스 삼아 저르야지. 그래서 맞았어. 뭐 되게 지금 그래서 자오망고 연습하는 거 쓰려.
So the fourth preparation is to give up on a great activities, a great mass of activities, and not being super busy. So what this can refer to is that when you're in retreat, then you should not kind of engage into any kind of or any kind of extensive types of buying goods and then selling them again or something, or like buying something and then having to get that from somewhere and bring it back, and then you have too much of it, then you try to sell this again, you bring it there and so forth. So all this kind of activity of buying and selling is an example of activities that are to be given up. So you can see how this kind of activity of buying and selling is actually having a lot of different activities included in it. So this activity in itself is something that has many activities. Yeah. So this kind of complex thing of doing business kind of thing, or like buying things and selling them again and so forth, that's not such a distraction that you need to get rid of.
단년가들이 주변 말다 봤을 텐데들이 다 런일 쓰고 소소한 게 되네. 김뼈 동바이는다, 랍중 동바이는다, 전주승도 동바이는다, 상황 동바이는다, 된대이다 주변 양다 보수야 터지죠 그래서. 계속하면 점주를 납자 있는 다 또서 양다 보수야 터지죠 그래서. 주변 넘버다 봐 중앙에는 다 자와 강가다거든 양다 보지가 해.
And so now comes actually this fifth preparation, which is called abiding in a pure ethical discipline. So this time it is about your own discipline. Yeah? It's not about that your comrades or your companions should be ethical, but now it's about you yourself abiding in this ethical discipline. And so, as has been said, this can refer to whatever level of the pratimoksha vows we have, can be the lay vows or the Geshe vows, Khen vows, and so forth. Or it can be the Bodhisattva vows, can be the tantric vows, it can be just the trainings that we have taken on in the context of having taken refuge trainings, refuge vows, sometimes called refuge vows. So any of these levels of vows or of ethical discipline, whatever we have taken, then we try to abide in them perfectly during that time.
제시 라인게 추춤라 견자 시험과에는 라인게 시에토가 좋아래. 제바체 전바다 시신게 시신야보고 제때는 소설 견다 누적 강요 받대 된 타가라베 샤돔 지역에 된 탑시적으로 했어.
And so the Geshe also said that from keeping these ethics pure, then on that basis, other practices can turn out well as well. So in order to keep this ethics, you have to therefore kind of generate a mind that is kind of mindful, and you have to have an introspection and so forth. Yeah, it's a kind of vigilance. You have to look inside and see what is happening in the mind, so that you can see if you are abiding by your vows. And also mindfulness means, for example, you are mindful of that ethical discipline that you have subscribed to. Yeah, so you're aware of what you want to keep and how you're doing that. So if in that, nevertheless, it happens that you have a transgression of types, yeah, so some kind of unethical behavior or something against your promises and so forth, then here it's necessary that you then also do the effort of purifying these things, yeah, to a purification practice.
다들 주바디 개치시나 치셔들이 다 주바디 개치시나 치셔 가에서 되네 된다 가에서 도발서 남도 연습방으로서 남도 연습방에서 개시게 하래 다 들라더니 다 처음만 살당 거야.
No, true.
처음만 살당 거야. 선디 그나 차셔나 선디 니니도 살당 도도 그게 지구인 바 살당 세대 동네도 살당 동네도 사망을 사가 되게 지구인 바 살당 세디게 되네 바 메시 딜라인 차셔나 먼저 과바 인도다 님부 메바 살당 미다베런 신 살당 메시 수수 두주 조로야 될 살당 다 가랭이나 다들 살당자 세디 되네 고변조 탕제라 되네 바 니면 전도 다야가 탑시제죠. 가서 저도 이렇게 탑시제죠. 이 치매 디게 전야가 탑시제고요. 야 치매기 치매기 원도 디게 된데스 용야가 탑시 되라 센디라 알레 차신의 빠마도나 이 치매 원도 디게 다 드메야 봐. 뭐 되게 돌산당 거야. 다 되네도 저 치마양 계시 녀송도 개봐이나 가르쳐 안 써줘야 봐. 근데 녀송도 동네도 전고야. 녀송 동네 아주 미 통살아 간다거든 왜. 뭐도 저때 전발쳐. 사자를 사셔나 가로 추다 매다 롱을 그냥 열어주는 미디자에 탑시고 든두도 배참아 닝제. 자베 탑시 정했게 민도가 따라 사셔나 안조 알리 드려제. 근데 인도 뭐 근데 저 계시 녀송세데 든두리 나도 미게 토야 든두리 되게 상담바에는 섬유를 대비된 동네 침보로 봐. 계시런이 되지가 깨봐이나 되니 세들라 먼저 초남다지 맞아 봐이나 다 되지가 깨 드라이 막 타셔 봐. 뭐 되게 동네 라실 상담체 치매 녀송의 동네를 상담체. 뭐 치매 녀송 알레 냐와 이다 상하자 하고야 말다 알레 든두디게 가서 사마셔대요. 든두디도 강에 되게 사마셔대요. What the dare Sancha, Dene Chimedi, Dene Caso, Tungedi Nyomago, Kawade, Tandarani, to a Santan. Legilama de Lampi.
So then comes the sixth preparatory practice, or preparation for karma binding, and so this is the most important one. So it says one should give up on any kind of conceptualizations like desire and so forth. Yeah, so this kind of desirous thoughts and so forth. So one should let go of them or abandon them. So how would you do that? Yeah, so here you really have to think about what's going on in the present life, how all the situations in the present life are unsatisfactory and the nature of suffering. How whatever is unsatisfactory in your life right now is the result of negative actions of the past, yeah, of negativities. And you can also think about how this whole life in the end doesn't have any essence. Yeah? Its essence it's also impermanent, and it is running out and so forth. Yeah? So this very life here is nothing to cling to, yeah, or to be desirous to, or to be attached to. Yeah, so this is how one would reflect and meditate in order to abandon over-conceptualization of desire with regard to this life. But then also you want to work with any kind of attachment with regard to future lives. Yeah. So here also you're thinking that you want to let go of any kind of unconducive states of mind that are becoming the cause for then taking a rebirth after this life in the so-called lower realms or the bad migrations. And so we know, of course, that there's the talk about 3 lower realms. So one of them is right visibly in front of our eyes, which is the animal realm. And so there's nothing to be believed in or to have a religious sentiment about, but it's right in front of us. It's undeniable reality. And so here we can also see the suffering in that state, or how limited or how fearful this state is. So, for example, when you think about that we have all kind of calamities by way of water, of storms, wind, and of fires and earthquakes and so forth, and how humans can do something about it. Yeah, they can kind of save themselves in several ways or prepare themselves, but animals cannot. Yeah? They are just kind of completely given to these calamities, and they have to put up with this suffering, so have to experience them. So they have no protection there, and so that's just one way to think about this suffering of the lower realms, and how you would definitely want to be liberated from these states and not want to go by any means bring about that you don't go to these lower realms. And so if you do not abide by a kind of pure Dharma practice, then definitely this is the direction that we would go to. We would go to this kind of rebirth in lower realms. So in this way, you also give up any kind of thoughts of desire, or with regard to any kind of negative or non-Dharma activities, by way of thinking where this is leading in the long run. Yeah? So also with regard to thinking about future lives, you are abandoning attachment and other conceptualizations.
제가 다치메게 개와치 주고 있는 지기를 봐. 대야 말에 다치마 맞아 후나 된 차수 수롱그를 드네. 가고 싶샤서. 제가한테 내가 침보이 봐 인데서 치마 녀손도 자원이네 깨마고 탑시 가려 알았으라든 뭐다 미리 조금 쓰는 수야 돼. 다디소는 디 가라스라든 미리 조금 쓰는 수야 돼. 쓰는 바이나 녀손도 미리 타셔 당고 녀르체 내다. 녀손도 겨와라 주디 되래. 나란서 따라서 지금 도와정나 알아지 지금 만일에 제가 저기로 돈주 담아이네야. 미리 조금 쓰는 수면은 나한테 가인 파토 말해. 되네 수강을 잡두고 말해. 그 녀손 겨와라 주디 다른 사람이야. 뭐든지 다 두스잖아 먼저 때 서서치거든 치매 님이 되게 살다자 치매 님이 되지 왕 좀하고 탑시디 라라도 랑게 라고였어 제가 단다 소소는 출연 넘어다고 손에 들었어 뭐들
And so also when we talk about these dangers of what can happen in the future life, then it's not that this future life where we have to experience the outcome of our unethical behavior in this life is just one life. If it would be just one life, it would be kind of bearable, you live through it and that's it. But it's not like that. But you have fallen into these lower realms, and it is very difficult to see how you would get out of this lower realms. So actually, you stay there and might accumulate more rebirth in the lower realms. Yeah? So to go to the lower realms is very difficult to see how you get out of there again. So definitely, you wanna prevent that. Yeah, you do not want to end up in this realm, even the animal realm. And so the way to do that is to abide by the ethical discipline that abandons the 10 non-virtuous actions. That's right it. Yeah, this is the method to not go to the lower realms, because the cause for going into the lower realms is committing one of the 10 non-virtuous deeds. Yeah, so these 10 non-virtuous deeds, they are the cause for the lower realms. And so therefore, as these are the causes for the lower realms, if you have an ethical discipline where you bind yourself, you restrain yourself such that you do not engage into this 10 non-virtuous action, then you have abandoned, you have stopped the causes for those lower realms. So you will not go to the lower realms. Yeah. So, for example, if somebody would accumulate a lot of mantras of whatever type, let's say money mantras and so forth, but would not give up on the 10 non-virtuous actions, then these mantras will not protect him in the slightest from the lower realms. Why? Because he or she is constantly accumulating the causes for the lower realms by not abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions, however many mantras this person is saying. Yeah? So the causes for lower realms is the 10 non-virtuous actions. What keeps you out of that is an ethical discipline of abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions, and that alone. Yeah. So that, on the other hand, also means that this practice that saves us from the lower realms or protects us from the lower realms is completely in our hands. We can do that. Yeah. So we, by us ourselves, keeping this ethical discipline, staying away from these 10 non-virtuous actions, by that we will make sure that we don't have to go to the lower realms. So it's in our own hands. Very empowering kind of thing. Yeah? So this is the way to abandon these lower realms.
Those Chetananzo Soso Rabdu Chumaji Yenenda, Menenda, Kavake Mindu, Rain Napa Yenenda, Menenda, Kavake Mindu. Donna Miki would choose the point at the Kashim Shiri. He pounds Miki would choose the point at Tapshi Shabajina. The Nekara, Donaka Karashavar is still at the Susu, Nyasudam Domorita. Jawa Tenduna, the Rukuja to Adam, Nyasun Domora. Chazanzo Kemdu Yemela, the woman do. Cannot rub the Jumajura, the woman do. Can make you a chew, Sri Yandaba Sungayana. The commit Tango, Yandaba Shigur, the Yandaba Shigur. Rashik less some of the side we are. Tarangi Potam, Jandaka, Kayas Sosin, and Super Media, you are touching. Some answer Tarachin, there is lots of people. Manzo Cambu Chiki Chinga Semki, Kumki, Kungachi, Chavacha, take on make it you certainly Yandaba Masuna. Candice Cambu Sengi, Nano Kansas Kelly. Try to the truth there. You are going to voting on the never temperature.
How did it start? Geshe made a detour in the middle. So anyway, so they started by so the point is that by keeping this ethical discipline of the 10 of abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions, then on that basis you will not go to lower realms. You protect from the lower realms. So that means you don't have to be a monk. You don't have to be a monk or a nun or ordained in any way. Yeah. You don't have to be. It doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist or not. It's not about any of that. It's about if you are staying away from the 10 non-virtuous actions or not. Being a Buddhist or not, being ordained or not, being lay or it doesn't matter. The question is simply that: do you engage in the 10 non-virtuous actions or not? Are you steering safe or free from this non-virtuous actions or not? Yeah, that's all what it's about. Because the cause for going to lower realms is that you engage in these 10 non-virtuous actions. If you abstain from these non-virtuous actions, then automatically you're going into virtuous states instead. Yeah, so you are no longer you're doing virtue, and you're not dwelling in those negative actions that are the causes for taking rebirth in the lower realm. So, for example, we do practices like going for refuge, or we do practices, or we practice towards the mind generation, in other words, for bodhicitta and so forth. But if that is not together with an ethical discipline that abandons the 10 non-virtuous actions, then these things will A, not protect us from the lower realms, and B, then they themselves will not turn out. I mean, how can you have a refuge if you are not working on abstaining even from the 10 non-virtuous actions? What are you taking refuge in? And how can you actually successfully generate the body mind if you don't like get free from this engaging into the 10 non-virtuous actions. Yes, it's the complete basis. That's so.
나도 다 좀 샤서 너제 다드네 다 양다바지 제 비나가 대가나 다 최남버다바지 제상은 거의 님이 상거랬어 거의 님이 상자다 동해 가서 그러다 다들 다 가인서 동해 교단 잡았어 싫어 동해 교단 잡았어 상당인데 동해게 넣어서 되게 상당인데 코 리죽 심지 수르지 봐 이나에 당보들아 차원 두지게 동해가 많아 수지요 차원 두지게 동해들이 캡돼요 꾸인데 캡돼요 수르 시내에는 수는 하동에는 되게 패마송 된다 차원 두지게 동해들이 해신지 되네 대다 마다 탄지도 코아바래 근데 인도 코 동해게는 코 동해게는 신체도 야부 상다 대 교군중을 종rin이 상다 하고서 교군중을 깨는 종rin이가 상다 되네 저 야보지 상 통바이는 그다음 안도 되네 내다 동해 동화 담에서 상다는도 rimbar saltane din dungawa sija saltane dungazu ngawa di khala tene jungse je jugunyo de dibar saltan budwa midabar saltan din dungawa saltan midaba da dungawa sawa jesu namrene somana sheshane deni kunjung rimba de saltan deni kunjung rimba de saltan da dungai gyudan chaba de 다 가라 때네 내가 쇼고르스는 다시 나오는 동화다 다음에 그 받게는 주셔야 되네 어디 나가서 탑시 내한테 내려봐 다 누구스가 상담 보여 다 누구 다 처음만 지겐 미 섬주려 봐 대응 진짜 달래 되고라 되지 랍스는 되게도 내가 다 보고서 다 야고르지 제 상담아이나 다 신내서는 메토브 신내다 하도스는 예봐도 건강이 참 대바라다 하고서 오늘 지금 동해 때는 시와 신들 열에 동해 때는 신들 이거나 쌤도 양다 가지고 고아 쌤 때문에 고아를 신의 구구열에 실업도 하도 실업지 구구열에 내가 다 갔으면 되게 말에 되니 대신을 주게 되는 시락 순리게 내줘도 구구열 다 된다면서 도스가 살다자 되니 시락은 신에서도 같이 손제 계정을 임받도 살다 보여랬어 와
So in order to practice a pure Dharma, we have to think about the drawbacks of samsara. Yeah? So this is a topic that we need to deal with, that we have to reflect on. So that means we have to reflect on suffering and its causes. Yeah? Suffering, all aspects of suffering, including its causes. So when we think about all the beings in samsara, so we think about the 6 types of migrators, as this is called, then we can see that all of them have this pervasive compounding suffering. Yeah, the third of the 3 types of suffering. So wherever they are, in whatever kind of state or even elevated state they all are pervaded of having that 3rd type of suffering, this pervasive compounding suffering. And so there is actually within the 6 types of migrators, there's those who have certain types of karma abiding, there's those who have certain types of special insight and so forth. Yeah? So even if they have that, yeah, being still one of the 6 types of migrators, being still in samsara, that means that whatever attainment they have there, it is still within samsara. So therefore they are in their state of being one of these 6 migrators, they're still pervaded by that third type of suffering. They're all suffering from this pervasive compounding suffering. So what's the cause for that? Why is it that they all are having this kind of unsatisfactory state of life or state of experience? Where does this come from? It comes from the 2 origins. Yeah, so then you have to think about the causes of this kind of suffering or dissatisfying situation. And so how you would think about the whole thing in the context of the Four Noble Truths, or the first two Noble Truths actually. So each of these Four Noble Truths has four aspects to it. Yeah? So you would think along those. So first you would think about that these suffering phenomena that are included here in suffering are impermanent, and how that is already dissatisfactory. Then the next one is that they are the nature of suffering. Yeah? So you think about these two things, that things are impermanent, that they are ephemeral, that they are in the nature of suffering, that they're dissatisfying, and so forth. And so why are they in the nature of suffering? They're in the nature of suffering because they are contaminated, because they are coming from the true origins. Yeah? So at that point, you have gone through the first two aspects. You've thought about impermanent, you have thought about nature of suffering, and then you think about, so why are these phenomena, why are the phenomena in my life, why are they all in nature of suffering? Answer: because the causes of it are the true origins. Yeah, so afflictions and karma and so forth. And then you ask yourself, so if this has this kind of causes, how would I get rid of these causes that are then producing for me all this contaminated or dissatisfying, dissatisfactory or suffering phenomena in my life, experiences in my life? So how would I get rid of this? And then you come back to the third and fourth aspect of the first Noble Truth, which is empty and selfless. Yeah, so you would think about by a wisdom that is realizing that there is no unitary, permanent, and independent self, or that there is, on the next level, that there is no self-sufficient, substantially existent self, and so forth. Yeah, so by thinking about empty and selfless, you understand that realizing that a wisdom that is realizing these aspects would get rid of the true origins, which are producing that what is in the nature of suffering, which was the second aspect of the first Noble Truth. And so this is then, when we understand that and want to get a real deep understanding of this kind of factors here, and really kind of want to gain a feel for these drawbacks of samsara, then in order to bring such a good quality mind about these topics, you will actually have to engage in these topics with calm abiding and special insight. Yeah, because otherwise the mind will not be sharp enough and it will not be stable enough and so on. Yeah? So actually you wanna gain an understanding of these different topics that we have just discussed with regard to the drawbacks of samsara, and so you would need this calm abiding and this special insight, and this would be a calm abiding and special insight observing the Four Noble Truths. Yeah, it will not just be any kind of a single-pointed mind or any kind of insight, but it would be a calm abiding, a special insight, observing the Four Noble Truths.
This one. This. 제가 아주 동행기 님이 군중기 중에 세체로와. 동행기 님이 동행기 중에 되겠지. 동행대 가라 때는 중국에서 군중 중에 되겠다. 다 두군이의 주주의 상담인데 다음에 비내주 상담 다음에 비내주들 상담자들은 통화 다처럼 오신 통화다 란제도 자이가 통화다 들어 하루도 란시도 통화세지 드레지도 상담인데 드네바 로조인데 대신에 군중의 조 머리바 세대 드니 치즈로 많이 마셔도야 되겠지. 델레 타르에 든 타르바세지 따던데 이거 되겠죠. 나 델레 좋아지 녀지. 타르바세지 두두에 봐서 상코야 이거 되겠지. 다 주식이 람데 다 단다시야 다가나래. 가니스나 다음에 되는 주제 되는 타르바도 쉬고 된다. 와. 누가 되잖아. 타르바스데 가라 때는 연구해서 다음에 되는 연구야마도 도서 시험해. 다듯이 다들 알린 두두담 시험. 다 두가를 전에 된다 가인스는 신의 세대 가인스는 나도 람야 통으로 쉬발라 신의 mental은 야면도 다도 mental은 야면도 나도 도서 men도 랑가거로 men도 봐.
람 토발라.
람 토발라. 시라 신의가 하동 뒤라 맞으나 되네 람거라 쉬어버려 men도. 람들라 슈발라 딘신을 네버도 주고 동행이 뭐 니미드다 군중군 중리다 되네 동행 교단 잡아 주주시 와 주주스나 방수되게 셰프야 와 되게 르바데 마조나 라가 가서 치 아마 땅 가서 가서 전에요 와 내게 차대도 나 가서 신에서들 스스로 대삼지게 계시면 이 말에서 상당히 와.
And so what we need to reflect on is the drawbacks of suffering and the stages of development of the evolution, if you like, of the true origins. Yeah. So so you reflect on this drawbacks of the true sufferings and the evolution or the development of the involvement of the true origins, and then you think about how there is this aspect of empty and of selfless. So again, this can mean different things. So it can mean that you think about that there's an absence of a permanent, unitary, and independent self, or that there's an absence of a self-sufficient, substantially existent self, or on a highest level, even there's an absence, an emptiness with regard to an inherently existent or truly existent self. Yeah? So by understanding that, then you come back to what is this root affliction, the root problem, the root in all these true origins. What is the root origin, if you like? Yeah. So the root origin is said to be a certain type of ignorance, yeah, and ignorance grasping for such a self. And so if you have understood that these selflessnesses, then you actually understand exactly what this ignorance is about, yeah? How this ignorance is misperceiving things, because you understand how they actually exist. Yeah. So not only do you then understand what this ignorance, which is the root of all the afflictions, or the root of the very basis, the origin, or the root of all the true origins, you understand what that is, but also further on you understand that it can be abandoned. It is not just a root of all the different origins of all the sufferings, but that root can be abandoned. And you understand this because you have understood what is empty and selfless. And once you understand what this root of samsara, or root of the true origins is, and how that can be abandoned, then you understand, you know that there is liberation. You could be free from all that, from all samsara, from all the suffering, from all the true origins, and that you can abandon. You know there's liberation, and that you can aim at this liberation, you can attain it, you can abandon samsara completely. And so this is this kind of different topics and this kind of sequence for how you would work through these Four Noble Truths. And then, of course, what we have not touched on yet is the fourth one, the path. And so Geshe said, so in the end, what we need in order to get this liberation, in order to get free of this root of samsara, is the paths. Yeah. So the path as they are described to us. So in order to attain a path, you actually need to have calm abiding and special insight. Yeah, so the very entry into any kind of path that will be that what is actually helping us to get rid of this true origins and to attain liberation. To enter into a path, you already have to have calm abiding and special insight. And so without calm abiding and special insight of some type, you are not able to enter into a path. Yeah, if you're not entering into a path, then you cannot attain the actual result of that path, which would be liberation. So therefore, you need to have get so far that you get a calm abiding and special insight with regard to all these previously mentioned topics, like the drawbacks of suffering, of true suffering, the evolution, or the way how suffering, or how the true origins unfold. Yeah, the evolution of the true origins. You need to get a calm abiding special insight with regard to empty and selfless, how the root of samsara, the ignorance, what it is, how it actually perceives or misperceives, that it can be abandoned, and that liberation is possible, and so forth.
공부를 해봐라 토마를 알지 나라도로 깽에 빠져가 치수치 가르쳐야 되고 그래서 레로스 쳐야 되게 달 레로 연어 알리 주로 지기야 말이야 당연히 벨레로 지나 내 용구 말이야 삼 달에 당문에 내 그래 투고 말이야 삼배 삼저지나 소소소소 많이 해지잖아 용구야 말이야 야 저거 내 신시 연어 대회장 용구야 말이야 저거 내 뭐냐 차 대두가 나더니 철로 초구야 말이야 삼배 초서 초구야 말이야 자원이었어. 그 길로를 내려오면 여가 있는 길로다 길로가 가라잖아. 산이 제조, 나이 제조, 신이 제조, 들어오지마 제조, 나오지마 제조, 들배 도스 가라잖아. 두수 돌아다니죠. 사만 도스 가라잖아. 제고 산자들이 가서 나저 대제요라 대신은 다 라마도 되게 당하래. 되네. 다 제고 삼자 되네. 제고 삼자 원이슈 조송스. 되네 가래. 야다 제샤 대치게 제고 산자. 다 맞죠 세는 이주시.
Dorichi. 네.
다 유시다 알디 라마죠. 다 가야스나 데 데모스리. 다 가야스나 먼저 제고 삼바이네 다 맞죠. 다 레레토를 딱 치제 되는 먼저 연구야 말했어. 그래서 레로세디 먼저 다 신의 공부나 다 파체 치수 담보들은 레로셔비요.
And so when we then say here that in our context here we talk about this practice of calm abiding, so what would be one of the biggest obstacles for the attainment of calm abiding? Yeah? So it's the basic main obstacle for attaining of calm abiding is actually laziness. Yeah? So laziness is that what is not letting us engage in the first place. We don't even start. So this is the main obstacle. So there's different forms of laziness. So there's a laziness that is kind of putting yourself down. Yeah, this is a laziness where you say like, oh, I am not suited for this. I cannot possibly do this. Yeah, I cannot attain calm abiding or work on calm abiding or work on concentration. So I'm not that type. I can't do it. Yeah? So that obviously is actually this is a form of laziness, and this is obviously the strongest hindrance for attaining calm abiding, this kind of laziness, which is actually putting yourself down. It's a laziness or a heaviness, if you like, in the sense of that you say, I cannot possibly attain something like that. And the next one is called a laziness of engaging into negative activities, but actually, or lower activities. It's talking about like everyday stuff. Yeah, so it's not that you're killing people or something, but it's just kind of being busy with all kind of activities, and that is actually, while this is actually a form of being busy and active, it is from the point of view of Dharma, it is laziness, because it is something that is distracting you. You rather do that than doing a Dharma practice or putting into practice what you have heard how to do things. The next type of laziness, which is again the major hindrance for attaining anything, is the laziness of procrastination. Yeah, where you say like, oh, definitely I'm going to do this, and I need to do this. This is really important. I want to practice Dharma, and I will practice Dharma. At what point I'm going to practice Dharma? Yeah? So you have this attitude. You want to do that, but you constantly procrastinate. In the end, you never do it. Yeah? So, and by never doing it, of course, you never attain anything. So this is this procrastination where you think like really like I want to do Dharma and this needs to be done, but you're constantly putting it off. Yeah, so you're not kind of engaging into the actual practice. You're not doing the actual practice.
먼저 내 말에 다든다 가인스나 계시 신의 타봐요. 나랑도 루심 신상의 대화타요. 루심 신상의 대화타인데 다 가인스나 계획 자와 간대기를 줘봐 있나요? 강에면에 차고요. 대략경에 바르면에 차는데 제가 다 알레 신의 기스름세데 쉬우지 계셔모 임바 도스가를 통화해 준 바이나 이는 랄로스는 과에 되니 고르치는 거예요. 일단 지구들을 좋아하대 맞잖아. 지구 좋아하대 맞잖아. 좀다 내가 봐도 저게 신의들 신의 기스사 가자다 레로도 못 하고요. 없었어요.
And so, on the other hand, when we would attain calm abiding, we would attain something which we could, there's probably different ways to translate this, but one way to translate this is we would have the physical and mental, we would have the ease, or the ease, let's say, the ease of physical and mental pliancy. Yeah, the well-being, the physical and mental well-being of pliancy. Sometimes it's called bliss. So we will see about what Geshe does with that. But anyway, there is this kind of ease, actually. Actually, it's more talking about an ease. And what this wants to say is that if you have this ease of physical and mental pliancy, then whatever kind of virtuous action you want to engage in, whatever virtuous activity you want to put your mind on, place on, then this comes to you very, very easy. Yeah, you can do as you please. Yeah, and so you will not have any kind of obstacles for turning your mind at will on a certain virtuous object. Yeah, so that will be, things become very, very, very easy and natural, and there's no longer a big hassle or great obstacles to your Dharma practice and so forth. So this is one of the benefits of calm abiding, and so so that's something to bring to mind and to relish that. Yeah? So that I could have that. Yeah. So then to have actually a gusto for that, or like having a longing for that, having an enthusiasm for attaining that kind of state. Yeah. You think about like what would it be when I had that. Yeah? So you develop this kind of enthusiasm, or this liking or longing even for gaining this kind of ease in the mind with regard to virtue, and that will then be a strong factor to turn away from laziness, because you actually have an enthusiasm or longing for this result. But if you do not have this kind of longing, by understanding this kind of benefit of calm abiding, then it will be very difficult to work on calm abiding and not be overpowered by laziness. That's So then, in order to attain to such an actual state of calm abiding, then there is a certain way, a certain method for attaining that state. So that kind of method you need to understand. Yeah, you need to first kind of become knowledgeable and have penetrated how this process works. Yeah, you have to be knowledgeable about the process. You have to have studied about this. Have to thought about this and so forth. How calm abiding, or actual calm abiding, comes about. So that is coming to you by getting instructions and so forth. You have studied the instructions, you've heard these instructions, you've thought about them. So one factor that you need to develop in your practice towards calm abiding is a so-called antidote of what you need to avoid, a mistake. First of all, the mistake would be to forget the instructions. Yeah, to no longer recall or be able to recall how is this done. Yeah, so here you have to have a certain kind of recollection or mindfulness that keeps in mind all the instructions that you have heard, or all the things that you have studied about how to actually attain such an actual state of calm abiding. What is the entity of calm abiding? How is it to be attained? So which kind of stages? What kind of faults are there? What kind of with what kind of antidotes? What kind of obstacles are there? How are they to be met, and so forth.
탑연도 전다 루심 신장의 대화타 소소게 심데 개와 간대적고 개와 간대지 주바 인바 이내야 강에명의 차인데 쉬어져야고로 봐. 다 된대지 용알라 준주 장고요아마 도제 내주 된대지 제부 된대지 상자 준주 장고요 봐. 쉬어져 준주 장한테 계시면 쉬어져. 와.
And so if you want to attain this kind of state of calm abiding, in which you have this ease or this of pliancy of body and mind, where you can engage into any kind of dharma at your wish and stay on that and really kind of go into that topic. So if you have this kind of this kind of wish and you aim at that and you want to attain that, then what you need to generate here is joyous effort. Yeah, so it all will in the end hinge on that you are joyously in effort. And through this effort, you can then attain whatever realization.
제가다 딘데게다 춘주 제부 딘데지 주베게다 춘주지 용알라 띵띵이 연대의 통문에 드네 개발된 것이 고도.
대박.
개발되면은 춘주 점이 되고 말아.
So in order for such a joyous effort to come about, you first need, with regard to the good aspects of such an attainment, the good qualities of, in this case, calm abiding, you need to have a faith that is a faith that with regard to this kind of good qualities, and this faith comes from you having investigated the topic. You having really kind of analyzed, studied, thought about it, and from really understanding how this is possible or how this method works, and how then it's said that there's this kind of result, and you analyze this if this is even possible, if this is even the case. Then on that basis of that understanding, you generate a faith on the basis of this understanding. Yeah, and with that faith towards this good qualities of that result state of calm abiding, you can then bring about the next step, which is a joyous effort towards actually attaining that state.
어디에 다도 상담이 제가 다도 상담자들이 가수로다 대화쇼 첨부였나 대화 될라 때는 듬바되냐 중은 준주되냐나 난 대부 신장 다 타시고.
And actually, the process here is even has even one more element. So first of all, you generate a faith with regard to a certain kind of attainment, or with regard to the good qualities of a certain attainment. So in our case, it is the good quality of calm abiding, which is this pliancy that you want to attain. So first, you're generating faith with regard to that, and on the basis of that faith, you then have an aspiration. Yeah, so the faith there with regard to that state has good qualities turns into an aspiration. May I have that? And on that basis, on the other hand, you're then able to generate this joyous effort. And once you have the joyous effort, you will definitely attain the result. And so in this case, the result of pliancy.
직장하고 참 들어와. 도스가는 대지로의 차토나 된 세네 그바게 들로의 차이 그래. 나니도 저과서 심 제주도 내게 고질 콜레로 거는 제주도 내게 고거는 야마라. 이거 신의 주에게 당한 거 제사는 여하고 야마라.
야.
신의 주에게 당한 거 제사보이나? 당한 거를 챙기면은 코피가 제수 주하고 용마라.
And so therefore, in order to all of this process to come about, we need to engage into kind of the looking into or kind of studying about these 5 faults and the 8 antidotal applications, the antidotes to these 5 faults and so forth. So that's something that we need to investigate, need to look at, need to study about, and then together with that also you talk about the 9 mental abidings. Yeah, also that is a topic that you need to become knowledgeable about. Yeah, and understand that process. And again, Geshe says this goes together actually. So by way of working with the 8 antidotes on the 5 faults, yeah, you will naturally come into increasingly higher states of a single-pointed mind. You'll be more and more able to actually concentrate the mind and become single-pointed. Yeah? So it comes together. Yeah? So you develop through the 9 stages by way of working with these 5 faults and the 8 antidotes and so forth. And so all of this comes about if you have come so far that you don't have any kind of laziness anymore with regard to this topic, because you have worked on laziness. And then another factor also here was, so laziness is actually the first of these 5 faults that we try to abandon. Yeah. And then another one is that you forget the instructions. Yeah. So that you actually sit there and try to meditate, but you forgot the details of how to do that. Yeah. So that's another fault that we need to counteract with recollection or with mindfulness.
그냥 앉아 semne 당고를 차셔봐 있나 semne 당고대 semne 리버고 있나 semne 당고를 차시나 셈 치르도 파 쉬어도 파까 치르도 나도 남이 초스러져 봐 이게 참 파까 셈 난도 추드 미과질라 다투어지 고야 미과질라 내투어지 고야 봐 다 되는지 엘레나라도 애들 리버 당고도 유하고랑 가고 쳐서 나도 다투 말돼 제가 된지지 다투야지 용하지 말라 띵게 연된 통에 대바도 고야
야, 당무디 용이라.
대용하라 띵게 연된 통에 대바도 고야 대바데 띵게 연된 통에 대바도 중앙이나 벨라드나 매바 준데 띵디마 차상하지 해줘 띵 간에서 띵게서 연된 통에 대바도 여봐 있는 근데 내주지 지금 다 깔려시켜 그러다 미국 다에 탑시 지겠다. 땡기는데 개성 실 통하지. 뭐도잖아. nên 알레로도 용마. 다라네. 뭐도스네. 제가 알레 세네 당보 다가라나 나나서 덤벼 꼬지 살다 봐이나 덤벼 꼬지도 살다나 꼬지 소소 일을 샤르고요. 대야 일을 샤르 짱 마인도 상경원 임바다 보 살다지.
Right. So Geshe says, so for example, when we just talk about this first of these 9 mental abidings, just a very start. So what we need to do here is that we need to stop the mind from going outwards, in other words, being distracted, and we work on gathering the mind inside and placing it on one observed object only. So we will just choose a certain object and then place it there. So this just trying to do this, just starting with that would be the first step. And so Geshe says even that, just to abide on an object of observation or a focal object, already that will become difficult for us. So right from the beginning, we would have to work with some choice effort and so forth. So right from the beginning, therefore, we need to have this faith that what we are doing here is having great benefits. Yeah, because otherwise laziness will become an obstacle for this very first stage, even the first of the 9 mental abidings, because even that will be difficult for us to work with. Because this first stage is not just kind of sitting down and starting, but it is actually placing the mind on a focal object. So the focal object first needs to be generated. Otherwise, you cannot place the mind on the focal object. So, for example, what is very often said is that you should take like a Buddha image or representation of the Buddha or a Buddha image, let's say, as your focal object. So you first need to work on that this object is actually dawning in your mind. That is actually that there's actually some kind of appearance in your mind. And again, Geshe says it's not just any kind of appearance, but this appearance should be so, let's say, vivid that you're not having the feeling that you're looking within your mind. Yeah, what is dawning there in your mind, what you're observing, what you're focusing on, is not kind of a cut-out paper Buddha or something, but very vivid, as if the Buddha himself is sitting in front of you. Yeah, so a very vivid object. So first you need to bring about that this kind of object is dawning in your mind. And when you have that, then you can do the first mental abiding of placing your mind on that. In order for this to come about, this is already kind of difficult. So therefore, we will have to have faith in the result of the whole process so that we can have the choice effort to work with
that. 미바 가론 찍다라스 공제 미바 상계 좀 된데기 꾸테라 살았다 공제게 로 나라서 셈되제 공제게 로데 나라서 셈제 셈디 미바 텔라 다 샤고야. 제주도 샤고. 하고서 곰 네가 그 미바 가론 찍다라 이니 켈라 샤바 차스. 미바 상기 좀데 되게 고데라 나라서 셈디 다 남에게 쳐서만 이제 샤바 차스라고 해요. 세네다 모델라.
지금 Gela Dila kare die Juli kelle give you limba Yamina Sendi.
좀데 되게 고데라 나라서 셈디 남에게 쳐서만 심바체 제주도 샤바 차스. 된다 되다. 미바 가론 찍다라 이니 켈라 샤바 차스. 된다 찍들 샤바이나. 상기 좀데 되게 고데 상기 뭐 두시기 때문에 그래야 좀 두시지 여봐야나 셈 개와 차서 다 이게 개와 차버 근데 이 개와 차는 소소가 곰대 상계 고들라 소소 셈데 내버 차 이니 개라 샤버 차 하고 지도스가 상담아
지금 Gela die kare sagen you Charne den also Sem Giva Charyuris.
어디샤
Die Nangla kare also die Mikbala kare Shagiris.
어디 소소 두시의 상계 고대 상계 뭐니 냐면 두시 여봐야나 이게 개와 쇼쇼무 간레게도 와 이 상계 고들라 샤버 차 이니 개라 샤버 차
And then when we come back to the root text, which is obviously incredibly terse, it says you just place the mind on any one virtuous focal object. So the Tibetan is a bit more complex. I can see where they say virtuous object. Literally it says with regard to any one object. Yeah, the mind, place it in virtue. You can read this on so it's not necessarily a virtuous object that we're talking about here. But anyway, what's going on here is that it talked about any kind of focal object. So in this case, we would, for example, take a representation of the Buddha image, yeah, and make him kind of very vividly appear in our mind. And so that's the observed object, the focal object. Yeah, that's the one that we took. Yeah, from any kind of focal object, we choose this one. And so then having this discernment in your mind that this is actually the Buddha Shakyamuni or the Buddha appearing in front of me. The mind becomes virtuous, and then within that virtue, you place your mind on that focal object, single pointedly. Yeah, so that's what you can do with the Tibetan here. Yeah? So the virtue is then more talking about the mind becoming inspired or being virtuous by understanding that this is a representation of the Buddha, rather than that we talk about that this is a virtuous object. Is the mind becoming virtuous, kind of inspired by this kind of presence of the Buddha, and then in that inspired or virtuous state, you place your mind on the focal object.
That's nenjuru shine drup jodan ngoshe dajan drup jurus ngarsha bata na shinje tinginze dela sem zejedo shakwa dela tune mutune da nenjo bata ge shatwa jungani shine drup dele shine drup ina ele chambara tene ngoshe sogo yende de drup
Okay.
ngoshe sogo yende dan drup jurus de ngoshe sogo yende de drup res din druwayin din druya ga donda da zunri shogure sa ba shogure so ba
Die Jubila Chendu. Okay, Chesang Kare Chikare Shinjong Dires, Shidi Menji Juba Dires, right?
mother what din zunri shogure so.
So then Geshe says the next two lines here, which are talking about the benefits of cultivating karma abiding this way, is that it says here in verse 31, the first two lines, when the practitioner has gained calm abiding, higher perception will also be gained. Yeah, so the practitioner, actually says the yogi here, the yogi having gained calm abiding means that he has trained his mind and has brought about that the mind becomes single-pointed, that he gains this actual state of calm abiding. Then in that he will, not in that, but through that, on the basis of that, he can then also attain higher perceptions or extrasensatory perceptions. And so that's the benefit that is mentioned here. And so this is exactly this kind of benefit that we have to think about in order to in order to generate a joyous effort or aspiration of faith with regard to calm abiding, yeah, that it has this kind of benefits. Yeah? So before Geshe was mentioning that if you have attained calm abiding, you actually get this pliancy, where you can put your mind on virtue as you wish. Now he has mentioned that this is also then leading further on to getting these higher perceptions. Yeah? So it's another benefit of calm abiding. So all of these things need to be reflected on in order to generate faith, aspiration, and then joyous effort with regard to the attainment of calm abiding.
Solam, Jonam, Tolam, Kolam, Miller Lam Sichena, Dina, Lam Tamje, Tene, Teratina, yes.
And so when we talk about such an actual state of calm abiding rather than the preparations for calm abiding, then this actual state of calm abiding is actually a state that you need for getting into any kind of path. Yeah? If you want to proceed into or like kind of proceed in your practice in a meditation such that you kind of enter into the path of accumulation, there will be this calm abiding. Yeah, in that moment you will have to have calm abiding. And so when you go from the path of accumulation to preparation, from preparation to seeing, from the path of seeing to the path of meditation and so forth, and the path of meditation to the path of normal learning, normal training, all of these transitions will be done on the basis of such a mind of calm abiding. So in other words, here there are some benefits of calm abiding mentioned here, but actually all the uncontaminated path, or all the path and all the uncontaminated path are also generated on the basis of calm abiding. So this is more benefits of this calm abiding. And then Geshe observes that that we are running, we ran out of time now. But actually, by having covered these two lines here about the benefits of cultivating calm abiding, the calm abiding section is already over. And so this is a good moment also to stop, because now starts the wisdom section.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And we stop here, which would probably be a good moment for some prayers.
Sure.